You mentioned it to me before the show, and I did not even realize this was a thing, but you pointed it out, and it is really, really weird. So tell people what it is, what you found, and we can talk about why it's weird.
Okay, so I was reading ESPN. Nick Wagner covers the team for ESPN, does a great job. He wrote a whole article like, what does it mean now with Brandon Ayuk and what's going on? At the very end, he's like, well, remember, the whole reason that the Niners are having a tough time is they got to save money because Brock Purdy's going to be the priority next year when he gets an extension. And he writes, quote, if Purdy can post another season similar to that or even better, he's poised to cash in on a contract that should pay him more than $45 million per season. Well, yeah. I mean, that's like saying that if Brandon Ayuk plays really well again this year, he's poised to get a contract that'll pay him more than $15 million per season next year. Like, oh yeah, we know that the quarterback market surpassed $45 million per season years ago. But what do the Niners know that? Because they sort of like to make their own markets at certain positions and justify it by saying, well, it's we can replace you and we got the coach and we got the team. I wonder what the Niners are really going to offer Brock Purdy next year, because they could offer him 45, 50, 55 and say that's generous, even if that's not where the rest of the market is. It's something to monitor.
Yeah, the contract should pay him more than $45 million this season. The contract definitely will pay him more than $45 million. For reference, Daniel Jones makes $40 million a year. Dak Prescott makes $40 million a year right now, and the big talk is how he's going to get potentially $60 million a year. Josh Allen makes $43 million. Mahomes makes $45 million. Kirk Cousins makes $45. He's going to get there is no way in hell Brock Purdy is signing a contract for $45, $46 million. If they do, then the 49ers have worked some sort of voodoo magic.
I just think it'd be kind of interesting. So the Niners offer what they think is fair to Brandon Ayuk, $25, $26 million a year. And here we are. What if they offer Brock $45 million next year or 47 to be generous? And Brock's like, hold on, you want me to take way below market value? You're like, yeah, it's a really generous offer. We have this great team that we want to keep it together. But like, what's wrong with $45 million? You complain about that publicly? That's a lot of money. He's like, yeah, but Tua just signed for 65. Like, why should I take less than Tua? Isn't that what we're seeing right now with Brandon? Brock, you should think about this right now.
I mean, the Brock Purdy contract talks are going to be really interesting, right? Because on the one hand, he's going to be entitled to a huge freaking deal because, I mean, assuming he puts up a year similar to what he did last year, that's a very good season. We know what the market for quarterbacks is. But is he going to say, you know what? I've been making no money. So you throw $45 million in front of me. That's a hard thing to turn to. Like, does that factor in, or does his agent just say, I know it's a lot of money. You got to trust me. I can get you way more than that. I don't know. Because at some point, the preferences of the player do take precedence. The agent works for the player. If the player said for whatever reason, just do the deal, I don't want to have this on my plate anymore, the agent would have to take it. Where Brock falls on that scale, I have no idea.
I just think it's funny. Like, we know about the Niners and how they do business in these negotiations. They play dirty, right? Like with Debo, what do they use against him? You play running back. You play running, as opposed to early in the season, it's like, man, could you please play running back for us? Oh my God, your versatility is so incredible. Then it was time to negotiate. Well, that's not playing wide receiver, and it's actually going to shorten your career. And then with Ayuk, I mean, what did they use against him? Target share. When they sold him on that, like, hey man, we're a team and we got to spread the ball around and run the ball, and we're kind of a slow pace on offense. Then when they turn around and like, well, you didn't really have the raw numbers now, did you? With Brock, what are they going to do? Like, for years, they've been pumping him up like, hey, man, don't listen to the Cam Newtons of the world. You're not a game manager. You're not a system quarterback. You're more than that. But at the negotiation table, they're going to be like, well, you got the best supporting cast. You got Kyle Shanahan. I mean, they're going to throw that in his face and come in a little low. And it's like, well, how's Brock going to take that? Everyone thinks Brock's this little choir boy and he doesn't really care about money. Like, he's also very proud and competitive. And if the Niners insult him, like they've insulted Brandon Ayuk for whatever reason, boy, that's going to be an interesting choice. So it's going to be interesting to see how the Niners next year might be a good time for them to change how they do business.
Will they do that, though, because remember, when the 49ers signed Jimmy Garoppolo, they agreed to that deal on February 8th, before the new league year even began. After 5 starts, the 49ers signed. It was like lightning speed. Before anybody could even talk about what the 49ers were going to do with Jimmy Garoppolo, he had a new deal. So it'll be very interesting to see if they do that with Brock Purdy.
Now, that's because he was about to hit unrestricted free agency.
But they
with
could
Brock, we have you under contract. I mean, all the things we hear from Lombardi, right? Well, the Niners technically have all the leverage. They could tag him 2 times. That all applies to Brock.
Yep.
Will people say it, though? It's easy to say it for the disgruntled wide receiver, but what about the Christ child himself? Jesus Christ reincarnated. Are you going to say that then next year? I'd love to hear it.
Well, especially if, let's say, Brock has a little bit of a down year, right? Maybe the year is not as good as last year. Then it's like, whoa, wait a minute. I don't know, but I do think that other players on the 49ers would be watching that and saying, they hemmed and hawed with my deal. They threw everything in my face. Now all of a sudden they signed this guy to a lightning fast deal. If it happens that way, I don't know if it will or not.
Yeah, you're kind of in a tough spot. Like you almost have to break Brock's chops because that's how you do business. And other players might be like, why do you get special treatment?
Well, but think about this too. John Lynch and Brandon Ayuk's agent are like best friends, and they're still doing this to Brandon Ayuk. So
yeah, it's quite weird. That is quite weird.
The contract stuff with the 49ers, it is going to be interesting to see what happens with Ayuk.
So much urgency to win the Super Bowl this year because the math, trying to figure out how to keep this team together, isn't really mathing anymore.
And it's just so, like, if they win a Super Bowl, whatever they do going forward, like, it'll matter, of course, but people are going to give them a lot of latitude, right? If they have to get rid of some pieces, people are going to be like, hey, they won the Super Bowl. Eventually you had to tear it down like the Rams did. People will be like, all right, whatever. But if you don't win a Super Bowl, then it's just even more. 2024 is shaping up. It's going to be a year.
Hey, Brock, you just won the MVP and the Super Bowl. We're really proud of you. Here's $45 million per season. Man, I can't wait. Boy, this guy is so uppity. I mean, we take him with the last pick. We make all his dreams come true. Put a great team around him, and now he thinks he's the star? Wow. Can't wait for that drama. But we do have a whole football season to go through before then, which should be interesting in and of itself.
I feel like we don't do that with white players. We never accuse white players of being greedy. But
I wasn't going to say it explicitly. I was just going to sort of imply it and let the viewer sort of understand that's where I was going. But yeah,
I literally responded to a YouTube comment this morning. Oh, Brandon Ayuk he's greedy. His culture tells
disgruntled
him about money. Like, no, man, everybody wants the most money possible. And I said it with other negotiations, and I'm saying it with this one. Nobody's doing anything wrong. 49ers are trying to get him for as little as possible and using all the tools at their disposal to do that. Brandon Ayuk wants as much as possible. He's using all the tools at his disposal to do that.
I will say that Brandon's doing something wrong insofar. I like using that term. I just feel like he's not doing a good job of he's trying to garner public sympathy. I don't think he is.
No, he's not.
If that's his goal, I think he's not getting it done. He's trying hard. I don't think he's really doing it. And maybe there's nothing he can do at this point because when a team offers you 26 and you want 30, I think you got to kind of just be quiet and let it play out because I think that's the issue with Bosa, right? He wanted 35 or whatever, 34, and the Niners probably offered him 30 and they had to work it out. And he didn't go on podcasts like playing the victim. No one's going to feel bad for you. He just waited. I think this was Brandon's ultimately going to do.
I think that the Niners have totally run circles around him from fan support perspective. I'll never forget the conversation Dez Bryant had with Jerry Jones. Jerry Jones loved to try to talk to players directly to get them to agree to bad deals. And they were up in the suite. It was just them two. And Dez has told this story. And Jerry's trying to get him to agree. And Dez is like, Jerry, look out on that field. What would happen to you if you tried to cover me on that field? And Jerry's like, well, you would destroy me. And Dez is like, exactly. So why am I going to talk contracts with you when this is your area and you would destroy me? I'm not going to do that. And it was smart by Dez Bryant to do that. The 49ers are professional negotiators.
He's trying to talk to him about money without his agent there. That's weird.
Jerry Jones does that all the time. Oh, yeah. He loves that.
It's funny how you think about these athletes are really not old. They're in their early to mid 20s, especially when it's time to get paid. And
Yep.
sometimes they can be a little bit even more mature than that because they've been almost, coddled since they were in middle school as these people who are going to make everyone money. And man, there's a lot of coaches and older people just taking advantage. I mean, manipulating and taking advantage of an impressionable 25-year-old who doesn't quite know how the world works yet. It's rough.
And at that point in time, had never seen the amount of money in their life that they were talking about. Like Jerry Jones is offering Des Bryant to that point more money than he's ever seen in his life. Now it's a little different now with the NIL money in college sports, but it's, it's one thing for someone to say, hey, do you want $100,000? It's another thing when you see $100,000 on the table across from you. That's a different thing.
It's like you're obviously trying to take it. Hey, man, this guy's 25. He's never seen money like this. Why don't I just bring him into this room, open this briefcase, dazzle him a little bit, and we'll get a big time discount. I mean, that's sort of what you're trying to do, which is not right.
No,
it's not good business
of Jerry Jones to do that. But he did it, unfortunately. And I
don't think Brock's gonna fall for the okie doke on that one. I think I mean, if his agent doesn't push for him to get all the money he can, there's gonna be 80 million agents calling Brock being like, hey, I could do a lot better.
They probably already have tried to, make those calls, the sneaky, slimy little agent world.
Quick prediction. Do you think the Niners follow their same playbook with Brock that they've done with Brandon and everyone and really, or do you think they say, hey, Brock, we love you so much, man. You would name your price.
Assuming Brock is healthy this year and plays similar to what he played last year, like if he goes in the tank, then maybe all bets are off. But assuming he plays in a similar fashion, I think it's wham, bam, thank you, ma'am. Done deal.
Why?
Because they love him. Kyle.
Who's they?
Oh, Kyle.
I disagree with you there. I think Jed loves him, but I think Kyle is always more down on his quarterbacks than people realize. And when Chris Sims ranked him 17th in the league, that set off alarm bells for me, thinking I wouldn't be surprised if Kyle is sort of similar in terms of his opinion. So Kyle says all the right things. He's the real deal. Love him, our guy. But when it's time to pay him $65 million a year, I wonder if privately he'll be like, oh, we don't really need to do that. Because I wouldn't be surprised if he's the one in the background being like, we don't need to pay Brendan. We don't. I don't think we need to.
Oh, I think he's definitely saying that.
So
I think so, yeah. But I don't know if he feels.
Well, we'll see. I thank you for making your prediction. I appreciate that. We'll see what happens.
Yes, Swan Song says Kyle loves Kyle. I love me some meat.
Yeah, he does.
49er.
He does.
Back in the day. All right, that's going to do it for this edition of the show. Please rate, review, and follow the Gold Standard Podcast Network wherever you get your audio podcasts. Like and subscribe to the YouTube channel, the Gold Standard 49ers Network YouTube channel, and to Grant Cohn's YouTube channel as well, where we are dual streaming